The business.
I need a long head, thick red bone. Open up her legs to filet mignon that pussy. I'ma get in it.
What's going on, YouTube? All right, so what we're going to talk about today is something that I think is going to maybe surprise a lot of you all. It's probably going to upset some of you, and then somebody's going to write me a comment after this video and wish me to hell. But that's all right. I don't care. I just want to tell the truth. So listen, if you, I know you've heard about the centurion, the story that we equate to healing in the Bible in Matthew 19:10 through 12. Basically, it talks about the story is recorded in Matthew 8:5 through 13, and Luke 7:1 through 10. We are told the centurion came to Jesus to plead for the healing of his servant. Jesus said he was willing to come to the centurion's house, but the centurion said to Jesus there was no need for that. He just believed that if Jesus simply spoke the word, his servant would be healed. Marveling at the man's faith, Jesus pronounced the servant healed, and Luke again tells us a similar story. Now, is it just another miracle story, or is it something that may save your life? I think it's something that will be powerful for your life. Now, in the original language, the importance of this story for gay, lesbian, bisexual Christians is much clearer. The Greek word used in Matthew's account to refer to the servant is pais. That's P-A-I-S. Now, in the language of the time, pais had three possible meanings depending upon which context it was used in. It could have been son or boy, it could have been servant, or it could be male lover. When it talks about male lover, often these lovers were younger than their masters, even teenagers. And if you ever read Romans in the original Hebrew, in the Greek Septuagint, the word that Romans 8 uses is pederast. That's what Paul uses to refer to older men who keep younger boys beyond the time of their contract. Paul wasn't condemning the fact that they were younger boys or older men. He was condemning the practice of pederasty. Basically, let me give you a brief history on pederasty. Pederasty is when, in ancient Greek times, when an older man would take a younger boy as his slave. This was normal in the culture, but once the boy reached puberty or what have you, or was of age to marry and work and have a family or whatever the case may be, the contract agreement was to let him go so he can go get married and blend in society. However, some of these politicians and aristocrats would keep these younger boys for a longer period than what was contracted, and Paul said you can't do that. Let them go. He was talking about that when he was referring to pederasty. Anyway, back to the story. Centurion, the word uses pais here. Now, in our modern minds, the idea of buying a teen lover seems repugnant. Of course, we have to place this in the context of ancient cultural norms. In ancient times, commercial transactions were the predominant means of forming relationships. Under the law, the wife was viewed as a property of the husband, with a status just above that of a slave. Moreover, in Jesus' day, a boy or girl was considered of marriageable age upon reaching his or her early teens. A lot of people condemn, I have some Islamic friends, a lot of people condemn them in their religion because the Prophet Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6. And they think that's disgusting, but you have to keep in mind, in that time, that was normal. It was not disgusting, it was normal. Okay, so remove your present day understanding and put yourself in the context of the time. Okay, today, most churches don't let you drink. They tell you can't drink alcohol. Most religions say alcohol is wrong, but then they forget that Jesus turned the water into wine. And we all know that wine and grape juice are not the same thing. It's the substance thereof, but it's not the same thing. All right, now, it wasn't even uncommon for an older man to marry a younger girl. Fortunately, we've advanced as a society, and we see things differently now. But again, in the culture, that was a norm. Now, the word boy in English offers a rough comparison like pais. You can say, that's my boy, talking about your friend. Or if a guy's talking about his wife, he can say, oh, that's my baby girl, or that's my girl. He don't mean a child. He's talking about that's somebody close to him. Likewise, the word pais had the same type of connotations depending on how you use it. Now, it provides three pieces of textual and circumstantial evidence. First, in the Luke passage, several additional Greek words are used to describe the one who is sick, referring to the boy. Luke says that the pace was the centurion's itimos doulos. The word doulos is a generic term for slave, and was never used in ancient Greek to describe a son or a boy. Doulos always referred to a slave. So that cancels the idea that this was the centurion's son or boy. We clearly, by the word doulos, we know that Luke said that this was a man's slave. Now, it also takes care to indicate this was not just a regular slave. The word intimos means honored. This was an honored slave, intimos doulos. So basically, there's a clear distinction between this particular slave and the rest of the slaves. A second piece of evidence is found in verse 9 of Matthew's account. In the course of expressing his faith in Jesus' power to heal by simply speaking, the centurion said, "When I tell my slave to do something, he does it." By extension, the centurion concludes that Jesus is also able to issue a remote verbal command that must be carried out. So when speaking here of his slaves, the centurion uses the word doulos. But when speaking of the one he is asking Jesus to heal, he uses only pace. In other words, when he's quoted in Matthew, the centurion uses pace only when referring to the boy or the slave. But he uses a different word when he refers to his other slaves, which does again show the clear separation of the relationship between this slave and the other slave that this guy had, which by deducing the term in its appropriate context, we've eliminated the fact that it could have been a son because the word doulos was used. We eliminated the fact that it could have been just a regular servant because the word doulos was not used in Matthew, it was pace that was used. So it can only leave one other meaning, and that would be the master's male lover. All right. Now, the other piece of evidence is we will consider circumstantial, only because in the Gospel we have many examples of people seeking healing for themselves or for family members, but this story is the only example of someone seeking healing for a slave. Now, the action described are made even more remarkable by the fact that this was a proud Roman centurion, a conqueror or oppressor. He was humbling himself and pleading with the Jewish rabbi to heal a slave. Now, the extraordinary lengths to which this man went to seek healing for the slave is much more understandable from a psychological perspective if the slave was indeed his lover. Now, imagine how it may have happened. Say for instance, this guy is stationed in Palestine, the centurion's pace becomes ill, experiencing some type of life-threatening paralysis. The centurion, of course, if you're in love with this boy, you're gonna do whatever it takes to save him, right? Right. So, as he made his way to Jesus, he probably worried about the possibility that Jesus, like other Jewish rabbis, would take a dim view of his homosexual relationship, of course. Perhaps even consider him to be lying or something. He could simply use the word doulos, but he didn't use the word doulos. That would have been accurate as far as it went. But the centurion, probably figured if Jesus was powerful enough to heal his lover, he was also powerful enough to see through any half-truths. Now, so why lie to him and just say, "Oh, this is just my slave"? He knew, Jesus knew better. So the centurion approached Jesus, bowed before him, and said, "Rabbi, my pace," the word gets caught in his throat. Can you imagine? He's almost ashamed, and he's telling God, Jesus, my lover is sick, and Jesus heals him. He didn't say repent. He didn't say be baptized in water. He didn't say none of these things. He healed him. He healed him. He sent him on his way. He didn't condemn them. So for you out there, this is something for you to take with you. Do the research for yourself. I got my information from www.wouldjesusdiscriminate.org. Check it out and tell me what you think.